is recording, so it's not live. Or is it? Maybe it is live. Well, nobody's in yet. Hell, we'll just wing it if it's not. I think it's live. Okay, cool. All right, let's get our intro up. All right, three. You right here, PJ. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Cultural Influence. I am the host, Brother Ray, here, and we are in a different setting. This is our first time doing a live stream, but just glad to be back. Brother Richie is with me as well, the co-host. So Richie, tell me what's going on, man. How you feeling being back on Cultural Influence?
Long time no see, my brother. It's good to be back in the saddle, man. I've been watching a lot of wrestling and I've had a lot of thoughts and been wanting to get into it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I guess this deserves a little bit more of a update on what's going on with some things right now. Shoot, I done relocated. I'm a sports reporter. I done took on the task being down here in South Texas. What's going on down here? That's live. Come on, get this off. I got put it in preview.
Uh-oh, you froze.
I'm good now. But anyways, yep. So yeah, fast forward. I'm down here in Victoria, Texas. I'm going on about 10 months, I believe, since I've moved down here. But I am a sports reporter. But don't let that confuse you. I am still taking part in the wrestling journey. I've done a few wrestling shows. I was a special guest ring announcer, but that'll be more later on and stuff like that. Victoria, Texas. Fun fact: Stone Cold Steve Austin is not from Victoria. He is from Etna, Texas, which is just 30 minutes away from Victoria and stuff like that. Go Cowboys, by the way. Very, very, very underrated high school football team in that area and stuff like that. So, just having fun down there and stuff like that. So, yeah, Richie, how's things been going down there in Oklahoma City besides the Thunder dominate?
It's been a pretty good year, I can't lie, but things have been good, man. I've went on my own little personal weight loss journey over the last year while we've been gone and dropped about 50 pounds, you know what I'm saying? And been working on some creative side endeavors on top of that and, just making the best of my time, you know what I'm saying? But I've been missing this.
Absolutely, absolutely. But like I said, guys, just give you a little update on the show. Don't want to waste too much time. I'm sure we'll talk on it as we get deeper into the show. But we'll be live here on YouTube pretty much here, and then you'll see various clips and updates on our YouTube page, and of course, you'll see the clean edited version of various segments on the YouTube page. So please stay updated on our YouTube page and on our Instagram page. But let's go ahead and get right into it. I know so much has happened, and I know we can't really recap it all, but we're pretty much in a wrestling off season, should you say, WrestleMania off season, because this is when wrestling pretty much dies down. But Richie, let's just go ahead and get into a big old recap. What is your biggest takeaway from this WrestleMania season?
Uh, yeet. Nah, that was probably the most important match to me was Jey Uso and Gunther. So them opening night one, I was kind of set for the weekend. Uh, the NXT guys had a really good show. Oba, Trick, uh, Javon, they main evented that Stand and Deliver. Yeah, the Stand and Deliver. It was a great show, top to bottom. But yeah, man, just my guy won, so I was good. You know what I'm saying?
That was your biggest takeaway, yeah. One of my biggest things is, man, I just want to take time to focus, and I think the IC title has kind of been one of my mainstays in WrestleMania these last 3 years. And I think that's one thing I just want to put over real quick. Here at Cultural Influence, we like to put over things. I just want to put over the IC title and its proper usage at WrestleMania because I mean, like, shout outs to Big Dom. You said Jay Uso was a dude that you wanted to win. I wanted Penta winning, but I was just as happy with Dom winning the IC title.
Yeah, shout outs to Big Dom. That was definitely a highlight for me too. Honestly, I'd have been cool with anybody. That match, everybody, well, except Braun. I wanted Braun to lose because I was kind of wanting Braun to move on up into the next level. But yeah, man, Dom coming out of that was a really like full circle moment. You know what I'm saying? I remember we saw him at Money in the Bank live in Fort Worth. It was the first live in-person pay-per-view since the COVID era. And he dropped the tag titles to the Usos that night. And it was, just cool seeing how far he's come since then. It's like night and day. Bro's pretty good.
For sure, for sure. One big thing that I wanted to take away from it was it felt like with this year's Mania, it was like a different vibe between nights because I felt like last year and just all years until then, many ways that the vibe felt the same. But I felt like I was almost in a new universe when it was night two compared to night one of this year's Mania. Did you kind of get that same vibe too?
Yeah, and I think it's like because we were expecting more from the night two main event, and so you kind of walked away from WrestleMania feeling like, night one might have been the better ticket, but we were expecting a lot more from night two, and that's another discussion for itself that we're gonna get into, of course.
For sure, absolutely, absolutely. And I also think like that was probably just a part of their production because I mean I felt like even the graphics was different. I think with us understanding that wrestling is of course predetermined and it's more of a spectacle and stuff, you kind of get these little innuendos about like, hey, this is a whole different universe, should you say, when you talk about the pro wrestling in the world of kayfabe.
Yeah. I always get that compliment when people who like I guess casuals who don't watch WrestleMania, they'll see it and see the the setup and the spectacle that is WrestleMania, and there's really nothing like it. The Super Bowl, it has the prestige, but it doesn't have the presentation. The same for the NBA Finals. Like they all have the prestige, but they just don't have the setup. In WrestleMania, they'll give you a visual show that you won't see in any other sport.
Absolutely. So you said night one was better than night two. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
What? Okay. Well, I mean, respect,
And
respect.
not saying night two was bad, but just the main event could have been better, but it damn sure opened up on a good spot with that women's triple threat. Mwah. Boy, they did their thing.
Yeah, yeah. It was a good welcome to the full meal. I think, like I said, I feel like I think why you're probably saying that is because I feel like we've seen just so much post. I feel like the post. I feel like everyone is interested in the post Mania theatrics that came with Night One because I think like with this whole Hill regime of Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman and Braun Breaker, I think that's what makes people probably think that Night One had more of attention because it was properly built, which I mean we'll get to, whereas the WWE title it was kind of in booking limbo where there was the powers that be such as Triple H and The Rock with their power struggle and stuff like that. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah. Like there were so many more implications going into night two that had everybody kind of hanging by a thread. And we were just wanting to see it was going to be. And we got the conclusion that a lot of us wanted. I was rooting for Cena myself, but it didn't happen the way that we thought.
That makes well then let's just go ahead and get down to the big I guess fiasco in night two, man. The Rock's non-involvement. Is it hurting the product? Is it still making the better product? What's your take first before I get my 2 cents
Uh, so The Rock has always been a great asset to wrestling, and I kind of feel like we're getting to a point where his stock is kind of lowering in Hollywood. So he's like, digging deeper into his wrestling bag. Because I remember him saying, I don't know who he was arguing with on Twitter, but he was saying, like, don't believe that crap. The Rock's going to be at WrestleMania. Like, do you remember that tweet? Like, do you remember that tweet?
Yeah, I remember. I remember. Yeah.
Okay, so I ain't tripping. But yeah, Rock had said he was going to be there, so him not being there was kind of weird and it took away from the show. But here's something that I was wondering, right? Do you think they just didn't meet The Rock's price this year?
I mean, if you a board of director, like, does a price really like matter at this point in the game. Like if you technically are an owner of something, you know what I'm saying? Like if you are part of the office opportunity and stuff, like I get it, time is money and stuff. So is that maybe that, but I don't think that's. I don't really think that's a thing. I don't think Rock is just asking for astronomical numbers too, though.
I'm pretty sure The Rock has a booking fee. Like, if you want The Rock to appear, he's going to need a bag on the top of the bag he's already getting. Like, I think Rock is about his bread. And for some reason, like, WrestleMania was very, like, well done, but they did kind of scale back. Like, when people did the grandiose entrances, all they did was drive up in cars. You know what I'm saying? I was expecting a little bit more. Like, for Becky and LA Knight and even Roman, he didn't get a special entrance. Cody Rhodes got dirt bikes. It was just an odd presentation. Like, they didn't have a bread. I ain't gonna say they didn't have a bread, but like, I noticed even Lex Luger wasn't up there, but he was at WrestleCon.
Yeah, I heard
Like, did he get paid more to be at WrestleCon than the other night at WrestleMania? Like, I don't know. Maybe WWE just wasn't dropping the bag the way they normally do for appearances and I don't know, other things.
I also heard that Lex Luger was tired. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you had like a 5 hour
Yeah.
Hall of Fame show, and man's is kind of old. You know what I'm saying? And but with him being at WrestleCon,
Okay, I can respect that. That's a fair point as well too.
But
But yeah,
I think my problem with The Rock not being involved is you really can't just excuse Travis Scott for not being, because it was just quite awkward to watch that thing with with the fans and stuff like that. And I feel like I sniffed BS after Cena had pretty much ignored The Rock, and kind of not mentioning him turning post heel. And so, like, I can't. I feel like I try to excuse a lot of BS that WWE does, and like with Rock not being there, I can't excuse the fact that you just had Travis Scott there in the mix, because Travis Scott is The Rock is the connecting factor between Rock and John Cena and stuff like in this whole story and stuff like that. For The Rock not to be in there, that can't excuse that. You know what I'm saying? And I just hope that didn't hurt
yeah.
the product overall, and it just made them look thirsty for celebrity fanfare. But I think that's WWE's biggest kept secret at this point.
Yeah, and another thing I don't like about it is the fact that we coming out of WrestleMania talking more about The Rock's absence. Like, he still somehow kind of became a part of the show without even being a part of the show. And then, like, have you seen his back and forth that he's had with like Dave LaGreca and stuff? And he's been seeming, I don't know. He was kind of like trying to downplay it. Like, he said he was added to Elimination Chamber because they were having a hard time selling tickets or something like that. And it was just like, what? That's kind of contradictory to what we've been told over the last year. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It's something funny going on. I really don't think him and Triple H are like that. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a little more tension there than we know about.
For sure, for sure. But do you also think like The Rock? I feel like I don't know if he's just using kayfabe as a way to kind of disapprove of what's being said, stuff like that. Because I feel like he also does respond in Twitter saying, "Just sit back and enjoy the ride." Like, what is your take on him using kayfabe or the ability of teasing people to kind of being like, hey, there's more than what's going on when you actually sit back and think like, no, there's not. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's your take on that?
They gotta be real careful with the way they blend in, like, the real life and the storylines, because you can't have your cake and eat it too. Is it Uchiwali or is it one mic? You can't be on both sides and then tell the fans that they're being stupid, because we're not stupid, we're confused. And if we're confused, it's because you have laid the groundwork for us to get lost in the trail. Like, bro, we don't know what's really going on anymore. And for a company that's priding itself on retail stories, cinema, movies, and all that stuff, you have to tell a coherent story. And so if we're expecting The Rock at the biggest show of the year, where is he? Like, he's a big part of the storyline, Like, that's like watching it Endgame and Iron Man isn't there. Like, bro, what?
uh, One of the big spectacles or one of the big stories with this whole Rock thing was, Cena being healed. And like I said, if you would have told me, last time we recorded to now that we would have a heel Cena as WWE champion, I would have looked at you crazy. What's your take with heel Cena so far? How would you rank this whole heel Cena regime and stuff?
We're off to a good start, some say it's a slow start, but I mean, like I'm not expecting really good matches from John Cena at this point in his career. I'm just expecting him to be entertained and see my guy go out on a really good story. But you're not gonna get the John Cena that was wrestling his ass off in 2016, and y'all were still saying he sucked. So sorry, you know what I'm saying. So now you have to cheer him through the downturn of his physical conditions, but he's like psychologically there. I love what he's doing, how he's kind of playing on his, back and forth relationship with the fans over the years. Like, this is a realistic way to do it, without him not being John Cena.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. I just first off, I just want to give praise to. I ain't even gonna say a Triple H, but a Nick Khan thing is one thing we learned from Rick Ross is hustlers, we don't leave money on the table, and you would think with the Cena heel turn that you don't you stop selling T-shirts and stuff like that, but I feel like we've seen the complete opposite, where like every other week Cena's in a different colored T-shirt and stuff like that, and merchandising is still happening. Like you got a heel Cena, but you still got the marketing machine, and I think that was one of the biggest things of why John Cena didn't turn heel for the longest, was because, man, we're gonna lose the marketing beast that is John Cena. And Triple H said, nah, hell no, we ain't gonna do that. It's still we gonna have our cake and eat it in this situation. And just kind of like what you said, Cena is still there mentally, and I think Cena's even. I feel like personally, I could see the extra work that Cena is putting into being such a heel character, because I feel like Cena's been a face for so long that you kind of become comfortable and you become complacent with going out there, talking to the audience, and kind of being yourself. But like, once you're healed, you can kind of see Cena's put on this whole different form of character, which requires a lot of hard work. And I just want to give Cena kudos to just being able to do that and actually put his full foot into this story of being a heel character.
Yeah, man. They say the best heels are the ones that tell the truth. And when John Cena goes out there, he shoots from the hip. He's somehow considered one of the all-time greats, but I still think he's underrated in mic work, because when John Cena goes out there, he just lets it fly. You know what I'm saying? And the stuff that he's saying right now, it's not, that kind of low-tier MJF crap. This is like, yo, I've dealt with y'all for 20 years. This is an abusive relationship. Y'all treat me like crap. I've still been this guy. I've persevered and all that, but now I'm leaving and I'm taking it all with me because you never deserved it and you never deserved me. And it's like, damn.
Yeah, it's some truth to it. Like it's really hard to rebuttal and stuff. So yeah, absolutely. And I think, like, do you think this is the storybook? I mean, do you think with him being killed, do you think this is a good way to kind of storybook close that chapter? Because in the last year or two, I feel like we've been Cena himself has been preparing to kind of transition out, because I've been noticing a lot of Cena wearing suits more on his press runs. Like, Shannon, he did a podcast with Shannon Sharp. That's conversation for it's controversial, but just seeing Cena in a suit and stuff like that, and seeing him talk about his personal life and stuff like that, we've never seen it, and so I feel like this heel turn is just kind of all a part of the next character, not the character arc, or the way we're going to see Cena in the public eye.
Yeah. This is definitely the beginning of John Cena transitioning to the next part of his career, which has basically been in full swing for about the last, 4 years at this point, and I'd say it's going pretty well, it's hard to say, he won't be successful, because John Cena obviously is a hard worker. He's obviously the type of guy that goes in and puts in the works and put forth his best effort. And so I feel like once he can really close the chapter on wrestling, that's it. He's going to really take off, like I see he got the next season of Peacemaker coming out this year. He's like shooting some dramas last year on top of that, John's getting ready for that next phase. And I'm just happy to see him kind of put a ribbon on this career. And if anybody is going to take the lineage of the WWE Championship with him, why not John?
If strong, if you got to keep kayfabe alive here at Coach. Absolutely, yeah. One thing I did like, I ain't gonna say I don't like, but it's when you look back and you hear Cena talk about all these dates and stuff, you really do realize that Cena is we really got him in a limited capacity. Like the time is ticking, the hourglass, the sand is falling in that hourglass. And one thing I will say is Cena's ass was he was at the Raw after Mania and the SmackDown after WrestleMania. So let's kind of transition into that. Is Raw and SmackDown after WrestleMania back to its glory that we once knew?
Oh baby, I ain't gonna lie. It's been a minute. It's been a minute, but I think we might be back to the old form a little bit. This was the most Raw after Mania I have felt in a really long time. We got a lot of fun things on that show. What did you think about that?
I think so too. One thing I will notice is it kind of felt like these last couple of years that the show was just kind of the name was kind of getting sold just because of the expectation and the name alone, like the Raw after WrestleMania and stuff like that. And one thing I will say, I've heard Triple H talking about in an interview during WrestleMania week was he was just saying that WrestleMania, when people think of WrestleMania, it's a place where you can close a story, but also not forget that it's a place where you can begin a new story. And I felt like we've kind of seen that in this post Raw and SmackDown after Mania and stuff like that. So I think that's really going to
Yeah,
kind of actually be more intrigued to watch a show because you can book a Raw after Mania and a SmackDown after Mania and have guys return and have guys return from injury or have someone debut from the main roster. But it's really like at the point like is that going to keep me coming back 2 weeks later and stuff like that as a non-casual fan? So I'm just I love the continuity that's being told in both shows, and they're using the moniker Raw and SmackDown after Mania, not just throwing the name on for it to be a potion.
Yeah, that was one thing I did notice was that, we had a few returns, but it wasn't the the rushing of NXT call-ups like it normally used to be. Now granted, I think that's a part of the reason why some of the Raw After Manias didn't have that same feel was because we've kind of been in a reboot of NXT. So we haven't had just those ready-made stars to be called up and go crazy on the next on the next level. So this year was kind of the first year where you felt like that. I was kind of waiting for Trick and those guys to pull up, but that they didn't, so it was cool. But you still got Rusev, and I was not expecting that. That was really cool. And then you get the ongoing story with Seth and Paul, and then the revealing of Braun Breaker. Holy crap! Like what a reveal and what a great pairing. I feel like the end goal here should be Braun Breaker and Paul Heyman.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I've been seeing a lot of people talk about like oh, it's the next evolution. I'm not a fan of that, and to be honest, I think we should just keep it at Seth, Braun, and Heyman. I don't think there needs to be another guy, and if it's another guy, I don't. I just don't want it to feel like because I think a lot of people see guys that ain't doing nothing on the main roster and just be like, oh, throw them in a faction, throw them in a faction, and I'm like, I've been hearing theory being thrown around. I'm like, nah, I mean, there's something that you could do with that, but I mean, I feel like you got Braun. I want Braun front and center, and like with that entrance and stuff like that. I know you've seen the meme where that spotlight is on him, and you got Paul Heyman on the side of him and stuff like that. You want to keep, and I feel like if you kind of bring in another guy, you kind of not say you push Braun Breaker back all the way, but you want to keep the light as bright as you can on Braun Breaker because Seth is going to be Seth no matter what. And so when you kind of throw in the idea of another faction or throwing another dude in there, you kind of take away from the big star that Braun Breaker could and is going to
Yeah. And I feel like somebody like Braun Breaker was kind of already on their way. The barks were over. He was kind of a tweener. He could do heel stuff and still get away with it. He could be a face because the crowd cheered for him. So I feel like he's in a good spot too. And Paul Heyman is only going to help. But here's my thing with a faction. I need it to be a faction. You can't have a faction with two guys and a manager. They look like a tag team. And we know Braun Breaker and Seth are not tag team guys. They might end up in a couple tag teams, but their goals are singles titles. So they definitely need another person to kind of offset it, or a woman. Becky Lynch just went heel, but I'm sure she doesn't even want her and Seth paired back together. Remember how awful that was last time? It was so corny. So I'm cool on that. But I do think they need some type of offset, either a smaller guy or a JD McDonough or a woman.
That's fair. That's totally fair. I feel like a woman would be cool because, like, because I think Braun Breaker, he's the muscle, but he's also, and I don't like them kind of labeling him as the muscle because Braun can talk too, because usually when you give a muscle guy or just the enforcer type of role, you kind of handicap them and you kind of book them in that corner where they can't talk, where that's all that they're there for. And like, I ain't gonna say Braun is the best of talkers, but Braun can hold his own on the mic,
Yeah, I'd say he's more capable at this point in his career than Batista was when he joined Evolution.
Exactly.
And we saw how Batista turned out. So I feel like this is a role that Braun can stay in and he'll prosper even more because he's already, ahead of the curve because of his time on the main roster. So I feel like him playing this is going to be a good role for him because it's going to give him a chance to break out.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's coming. It's coming. Like I hate doing that on a feud that just started and all that crap. But like
Absolutely. But some other big breaking news, big information that came out, and I think WrestleMania weekend of all accords was just perfect. AAA being purchased by WWE. I didn't want to sit there and say like I think this just adds on to the speculation that anything can happen in WrestleMania on WrestleMania weekend and stuff like that. And anything can happen in the WWE. You called me and like I was at work, not even think. I'm excited about WrestleMania weekend, but for the acquisition of a whole nother major wrestling promotion from WWE during WrestleMania week just blew my mind. So what's your take? What's the true meaning for you as a wrestling fan? Witness this big acquisition.
I think it's a double-edged I don't even call it a double-edged sword. It's just basically however you want to look at it. Like I know there are fans in Mexico that aren't the most happy about it, and there are fans in America that aren't that most happy about it. But from my perspective, I've read for years that AAA were looking for investors, looking for people to buy them, people to, pump money into them so they can, increase their production value. And now that they have that, I'm pretty sure that the company itself is pretty excited about that. I know they've always kind of tinkered with the idea of working with WWE, and for whatever reasons, it didn't work out. And so if they're happy, I'm happy with that. But I don't like the idea of gentrifying Lucha Libre in Mexico. I don't. And hopefully they can, stay true to those values. For now, I'm confident. Conan has said that he will be ahead of the head of creative with Jeremy Borash down there. And so, that's a pretty good 1-2 combo. And for anybody that's kind of loosely followed Triple Mania over the last couple years, we know that has easily been the worst show every year. And so, a little WWE dollars is going to boost that up. I was just talking about the presentation of WrestleMania. So now we got Triple Mania. So hopefully they can, be that for Mexico and, get back to what they once were, because we're talking about a promotion with 30 years of history. You know what I'm saying? And then some. There's so many people that got their starts there. And so it's just, you got a whole chance to break into a new market, and I hope they do it justice.
Absolutely. I think we did this. We talked about this, not like in this, not WWE buying, but we talked about some form of WWE kind of, I guess, secretly conquers the world. And I don't want to sit there and say that this is similar to what Vince did with the territory days, but bigger. But I think this purchase kind of verifies that in a sense. With the recent utilization of Penta and Ray Phoenix, it kind of has me excited to see that hopefully that they are on the forefront of this all, because when they announced it, those guys was there along with Vikingo, and I'm sure we'll get with some other guys that we can talk about to kind of blend in with the main roster and kind of be used down there in AAA and stuff like that. But I also feel like in order for this to be done correctly, you got to still treat this purchase like it's a big deal, because it's only so much that you can do when you just sit back and you realize that they're just used to develop talent in NXT. Like, we need some main roster crossover matches for this purchase to be, for it to be verified. You know what I'm saying? Because like, how would you feel if let's just sit there and say WCW got bought out and stuff like that right now, and you see Booker T and Sting and Goldberg on NXT, it would just feel like it's just like, yo, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? Like you kind of need to
Yeah.
you need this acquisition to be verified, and you got to at least at some point or another make this a main roster attraction too. Because NXT Worlds Collide, it's cool, but like we got to at least make it push it to the next level. That's what I want as a spectator of this whole acquisition.
Yeah, I would love it if they treated Triple A like another brand. Like, you got some guys on your roster that aren't doing anything. Send them to, Triple A. Let them get over down there and play some heels or something. You have this huge roster of people that you aren't using all the time. And, if you're going to be acquiring new promotions, send your best guys down there, help increase the attendance. Like, let's get it going. Because if El Grande Americano is not in AAA running laps around people. They are throwing money into the incinerator.
For sure, absolutely, yeah. I love it. I love the El Grande Americano story and stuff like that.
Bro, and you reminded me when you asked the question about them trying to take over the world. Remember The Rock posted that very calculated picture of him wearing a New Japan shirt playing with the Rubik's Cube. That wasn't by accident. You know what I'm saying? And WWE has been working more closely with Noah lately. They got their hands in some Japanese pots. We don't know what's going on or what the real deal is, but yeah, they're trying to get out there too. And when they get their Japanese promotion that they want, it's going to be crazy. We're going to have I don't know if it's going to be NXT Japan or what, or NXT Mexico. I hope they don't rebrand anything. Leave them as they are. And just let them be under the WWE umbrella. It's world wrestling. Let's get it.
Absolutely, you're right. I mean, obviously, I was younger and stuff like that. But how did you feel when ECW kind of became a developmental? And this is years after they had purchased the company. What was your take as a more mature, older wrestling fan who had some wrestling years under his belt to kind of see guys be used to develop WWE stars?
So of course it's gonna feel like a slap in the face a little bit, especially when you know that top tier talent came from ECW. Like you got top guys in the company right now that came from ECW, and you're treating it to get over, a young Kofi Kingston and Jack Swagger and Elijah Burke and Sylvester Terkay, but they bought it. They can do whatever they want with it. And so, yeah, I wasn't too offended at it, but yeah, you take note of little things like that. And also, I did enjoy ECW for what it was. You just kind of, you have to accept it, either that or you're going to walk around here mad all day and not like wrestling.
I just know if I see the Elvin Kingo doing a job to an upcoming wrestler, I'm going to have some problems. And the internet wrestling community, I ain't going to just sit there and say, like, I know the internet wrestling community is going to give it a harder time than I am. I have high hopes for Elvin Kingo.
Oh, bro, you don't want Vikingo putting over Ashanti the Adonis?
See, you already know. All I gotta throw is Jack Evans at you and let Jack Evans put over somebody. I don't know. Shoot, I can't think of nobody off top, but somebody from LFG. Man, that would hurt your feelings.
Listen, at this point, if Jack Evans just showed up in WWE, that'd be a win for him and me at this point. After that AEW run, I was like, all right, maybe my boy ain't got it no more. Damn.
But you had said, a lot of faces is in the promotion and stuff. We just saw the return of Rusev and Aleister Black. So let's talk about it, man. What's the expectation for these returning stars? What's your hope?
So my hope is that they can get into the main event scene. My expectation, back to the mid card you go. Unfortunately, that's just what it looks like. Like the main event pictures are extremely crowded right now, and so you guys coming in at this juncture, you're kind of just at a barely a higher position than what you left in. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. That mid card does sound very likely. I just feel like what is their defined role back? Because a lot of guys who lost, they kind of intend to get lost in the shuffle, and I would rather a guy have a defined role than get lost into the shuffle. Because when I feel like we kind of saw that with Braun Strowman in a sense when he kind of came back, and then he would kind of dance between he's this big monster guy, and then all of a sudden, oh, he's getting squashed by Jacob Fatu at Saturday night's main event, which is understandable because Jacob Fatu is one of the hottest things out right now and stuff like that. And
And
I
he's
just don't
treated
want
like
to
a
see.
monster. So it's not like he got, beat up by, Akira Tozawa. Like it's somebody that's literally bulldozing the entire roster right now.
Yeah. And so, like, I could see Rusev kind of being that guy. And I just feel like I kind of worry about Aleister Black's utilization because I feel like he kind of goes, not even Aleister himself. I feel like the character, him and Bray Wyatt kind of have that feeling of, they're so mystique and their character requires a lot more attention that you just can't just throw them in the ring with anybody or anything and make something out of nothing. And I just feel like hopefully they done learned their lesson from their last experience with the whole Bray Wyatt and with his last run in WWE. Ain't that one of the reasons why Alistair left WWE in the first place, where it's just because creative differences, Alistair believes different, he should be able to do
Nah,
certain
he got
things.
released.
All of that type of stuff.
It was
He
abrupt.
got released. It was
Yeah,
abrupt.
yeah, and like it just didn't like Rusev just I think his contract was up and he didn't leave, but yeah, Alistair got randomly released after he did all those weird promos where he was in the back. Remember when he was yelling like "Fight me, fight me," and he was just like he's talking to himself. And then when he finally came back, I want to say he.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember because like they changed his theme song and it was the worst theme song I had ever heard in my life, and I'll never. It
Yeah,
messed me up. I was so upset with that because like he had did that program with Seth and he was still selling the eye, which is by the way great. I love that he's still selling it to this day.
Yeah, so like as if Alistair can just come back and get in a solid upper main event, upper mid card feud and just stay relevant while the Cena crap is going on, that's cool. I feel like Rusev needs to run people over and then he needs to take out Jey Uso and take that title.
Real.
Now, I'm not saying this needs to happen next month, but maybe 5 months down the line. Like, you know what I'm saying? Give Rusev something to sink his teeth in, really get this new version of himself over. But when he gets to challenge for the title, I think he needs to win it. Otherwise, we're going to just be winning U.S. and Intercontinental titles again. And we did that the last time already, you know?
For sure. Absolutely. Okay. Cool. Well, Richie, we reaching that part in the podcast where it's WWE off season, man. So you ready for the discretion and stuff like that? Get these folk, get us into that segment.
Hey, man, most definitely. You know, we here at Culture and Influence, we do not advocate or even celebrate the releases of talent, but we do like to have a little bit of fun with the idea of a trade. And so let's say we take some of your favorite superstars from Raw or SmackDown, and let's say they land in TNA. You know, who would you like to see over there, or who would you expect to end up in TNA or AEW, or AEW going to WWE? Or we might even have some people that, end up in New Japan. Who knows? But, I think we need to have a nice little WWE, AEW pro wrestling trade. How about that?
Trade deadline. I love it. I love it. Right. Cool. All right, so I'm gonna just go ahead and start throwing out my trades. I think we're just gonna all go through them in one big talk. And like I said, there's after I go through my first trade, please chime in. Give me your thoughts and stuff like that. So my first trade, acquisition or whatever trade. No, I don't know why I said acquisition. Trade. This really isn't a wrestler, but this is a guy that I think it has kind of shown that he's unhappy with the WWE, and I think a change in scenery would do him well. And once again, he's not an active wrestler, but that's scheduled to change, and that is going to be my guy Corey Graves. He's voiced that he's very not happy with his current role, and I think him in AEW would be a really cool change in scenery. And it's no secret that he is medically cleared. I think Corey Graves in an AEW ring in a limited capacity would do wonders for them. He could kind of be the Pat McAfee. So what I did there, the Pat McAfee for AEW over there. Just bring him out every now and then, have him in the ring with Moxley here and there. I think that would be some cool moments to have, and just I would love to hear him and Taz and Jim Ross. Just that. Could you imagine hearing Corey Graves next to Taz on commentary in AEW? I think it'd be a cool situation to see Corey Graves in.
I do too. I think Corey Graves has a really good voice too. Him and Taz would probably do some really good work, and I think him kind of unleashed in AEW would be fun. So it's funny you say that too, because did you want me to go into mine, or did you have something else?
Yeah, you can go ahead and return with your trade.
Okay, I say it's funny you said that you started off with the non-wrestler, because I too am starting off with a non-wrestler. This person is not necessarily with a company right now, but they are definitely a free agent. And my person is Samantha the Bomb, going to AEW to be with her man, Ricochet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she's kind of already showing a little more personality than she normally does, and she's been getting into it with the wrestling fans online, and her and Ricochet have been playing into these heel characters, and it feels like a match made in heaven at this point. I noticed she was even doing a little bit of work this past weekend at during WrestleMania weekend, and so she still got a little itch for the games, and so I think putting her with Ricochet and giving him a real mouthpiece, and bro, they would do work out there.
Can Samantha talk? Does she have? I feel like she's more of a she's visually attractive and stuff like that. But can she work on the mic like that, man? Because we've seen her so good as a ring announcer and stuff, and she's exploded on that. So that would be interesting, because Ricochet does need a mouthpiece. And what better mouthpiece would be than his wife?
Hey, my boy doing good. He doing all right now. Stop tripping.
Yeah, I love the resurgence of Ricochet and stuff like that. So, all right, cool. Well, that brings me to my next trade piece, trade talk. Now, this person, it's a she. I love women. We got to shine a light here in women's wrestling. And this performer, I forgot that she was even on the main roster. She was on the main roster, but now apparently she's listed on back in the NXT roster. And I feel like she's more a girl that's just visual. She's more of a visual girl. Like when you see her in the ring, woman. I should say. When you see her in the ring, you see her in a tank and stuff like that. Like, I was always brought by the attack. And that's Shotzi, but she's going to be in TNA. I think the TNA women, I feel like Shotzi would thrive in kind of what Naomi did when she went down there and just kind of developed and honed her skills in the TNA. And it's no secret that WWE and TNA are just kind of partnered up with what they got going on and stuff. So I don't even think she got to go down to TNA and be signed to TNA. But I think it would be one of those situations where she's down in TNA, but she's under a WWE contract. Do a few good matches. She keeps her her WWE moniker, and hell, it boosts a little fanfare in the women's division. There was something that I liked about Shotzi, but I couldn't just point it out besides just her driving out there in the tank. And she's actually underrated in the ring. I love the little program she did where she cut. Who is that? Was that Bailey's hair that she cut?
Yeah.
So she got a few things that I feel like I'm not just going to. I think I feel like a run in TNA to kind of help tighten up her skills and actually help her find herself and find some consistency. So when she come back to WWE, it's off to the races. She'll have a defined role.
Yeah, I like Shotzi a lot, man. She has a it factor, an intangible quality, kind of like a Jeff Hardy, where it's just like you kind of want to root for her. She has a cool look, and she always. It's hard for me to explain it, but I do want to root for Shotzi, and her in-ring work is definitely either hit or miss. But here lately, she's been doing really well in that pairing she has with Tatum Paxley and Gigi Dolan. So I think them in TNA will be real fire for real. Oh, okay. I guess it's up on me. I ain't think about that.
You good?
Okay, so this is a guy that I think is really, really talented in the ring, but doesn't get a lot of shine for whatever reason. And that is my man's Apollo Crews. If I could take Apollo Crews, I would trade him to TNA in the quickness. You could drop him off in the X division. You could drop him off in the heavyweight scene, main event scene. Like, he can do it all. And I think that's a guy that's like terribly underutilized. He's shown us he can do the character character work. He's shown us he can do the in-ring work, and he just needs to get some camera work. You know what I'm saying? So I think TNA would be a great place for us to really see what Apollo Crews can do on a bigger level.
Absolutely, Apollo Crews in WWE. That would be something cool to see. That would definitely. Okay, cool. So we're staying in. All right. So my next trade. This is where we're going to see. We're not talking WWE to the set promotion. We're talking to WWE. We're talking a star arriving in WWE. And we're going to go to the AEW family and stuff like that. I think I got to see Hook in WWE for time. I could see Hook leaving AEW. His dad has said it, and Hook's fairly young. And as we've seen with the acquisition of Ricky Saints, WWE kind of wants younger guys and guys that they can kind of still mold to their liking. And I think Hook is the perfect guy for that. I think Hook is a guy that's just kind of gotten over with being with just being Hook, and I think WWE sees something in Hook that they can mold to their liking. And AEW, and I think like once again, AEW kind of needs some. I don't think AEW is a place to really develop talent. You need someone that's on that brink, that's missing, that needs a change of scenery. And I think Hook is somebody that needs to develop. And I think
Developed, yeah.
And NXT would be the spot for him to do that.
Yeah, I think a guy like Hook would thrive in NXT. They give him the right amount of guidance. Help him evolve his character. Help him get a little more mic work. And I think even Taz has said it himself. Hook would do really good in NXT, and I'd like to see that as well. Keeping things going, I'm gonna take somebody and move them home. So I want to look at Shinsuke Nakamura, right? Shinsuke's had a pretty Hall of Fame career in WWE. We're near the end more so than we are, anything else at this point. And so I would put Shinsuke back home in New Japan, where he can call it a career and get the send off that he deserves. He's getting the money he deserves now, I'm sure of it. But if Shinsuke Nakamura was going to retire tomorrow, I don't think WWE would pay him the respect that he deserved. So I would love to see him get his flowers the proper way in his home, New Japan, and have a couple more classics with his boys and call it a career.
Are we really at the end of Shinsuke Nakamura's career?
I don't think Shinsuke has another contract in his career.
Wow, I agree. I mean, let's give a take. Yeah, true. And I don't think he's the type to be a part-time. I don't think they would. I don't think.
I mean, he's essentially a part-timer now.
Is he? Well, I mean, yeah, because he's not like I guess you're right. You're right. Well, okay, cool. Well, that just brings me into my final trade. You said back home, and that pretty much is where this guy, this guy hasn't been home since 2013, and that is my guy AJ Styles. Once again, we're going to talk about this WWE and TNA relationship and seeing the phenomenal one back in TNA. I mean, I know I'm not the only one who wants to hear "Get Ready to Fly" in the Impact Zone at least one more good time, and I think it's one of those situations where AJ has said he's on his way out. He's not wrestling at 50, and I think bro is 47, 48, right?
Yeah.
He's somewhere in the late 40s. So we all know the twilight is definitely, the end is near for AJ Styles. And I think that would be a perfect way for WWE to honor and for TNA to honor the guy who gave his blood, sweat, and tears, who introduced us, the platform that introduced us all to AJ Styles. And I mean, AJ Styles played a good hand into the promotion that you see today as TNA.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they should collaborate and definitely send him off the way he deserves to be sent off when that time comes. Because AJ definitely has verified that he's already signed his last wrestling contract. So when this one is up, he's up. So enjoy him while you can, folks.
Absolutely. Well, That does it for
Well,
your
for my
WWE
last pick, you know how we were talking earlier about, people we can add to the Seth Rollins new faction and stuff like that. I think this guy has already gotten a really good reputation for being a heavy in another company. And so, what would be better way than to bring Wardlow into WWE than introduce him as the new backup for Seth Rollins? This way, you get Braun Breaker, without having just to be somebody's lackey. And then maybe you give him some contention at some point. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like where him and Seth start bumping heads. Now you got Wardlow having Seth's back and keeping Braun at bay. Like, I don't know. I think we all know at this point Wardlow has run his course in AEW. And so it would be cool to see him get, a nice last minute draft on Raw and pull up that way and help out that faction. Give them some new buzz.
would he be in there as Wardlow? Does he own?
I don't know. They probably would change his name. I don't feel like Wardlow is something they're gonna run with.
Yeah, and I think that would be a good way to kind of keep lightning in a bottle, kind of keep people guessing with this Seth Rollins storyline going on and stuff. But you know, Braun Breaker's been built as the muscle, and then you bring Wardlow in as, I guess he would be the muscle, and that would kind of create some tension between them two. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool. Well, guys, that does it for this segment of the WWE trade deadline. I'm pretty sure we will revisit this subject later on and stuff like that. But this wouldn't be cultural influence without going over the hottest stories in all of professional wrestling in the form of a hot tag. All right, now the first segment that we got to talk about is Booker T and Swerve Strickland. For those of you who don't know, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard about it right now. Swerve Strickland went on an interview with Vlad TV of all people, and of course, for those of you who don't know, Vlad isn't good for the culture for something. And people he has very mixed reviews. Swerve brings up, when Vince McMahon said the N word on national TV, and Book was actually in the segment, and you didn't say nothing then, and of course, it's triggered some, response from Book. So, Richie, what's your take? Give me the update. What's going on?
Man, there's a online thought about Swerve and his proximity blackness and only repping the culture when it benefits him, and I've seen things that kind of go along with that, but I don't want to kick his back in and talk down on Swerve or anything like that. I just want to state that Booker T and Swerve beefing is bad for the culture. These should be two guys that are, the past and the present of black professional wrestling. And this is just what happens when you involve people like Vlad, and it's unfortunate because you're kind of turning us inside out, arguing about Vince McMahon saying the N-word to John Cena in a joking segment.
I don't think we can downplay it, and I think, like I said, Book is known for being like you gave us the update on Swerve, and I mean just the background on Booker is, Book is known for being a company guy. Book is known to eat shit for a company and stuff like that, and I just kind of hate to see things like this because I'm sure Book has responded to that segment hundreds of times by now because it's crazy to think that clip is 20 plus years old, man. Like that moment alone, it definitely happened around '05, and so like here we are in 2025. Like, man, that segment is 20 years old, and I feel like for Swerve to just kind of bring that up on the big platform known as Vlad TV, it's like it just wasn't a right mix, man. Like if he would have said it on somewhere like if he would have said it on another profile on another program or something like that, like maybe it would have been a little different, man. Because of course people are going to sit there and say, "Look, did you hear what he said? Did you hear what he said?" And I just don't like. I didn't like how it gave Vlad put extra money in Vlad's pockets, but it came at the expense of the wrestling world being more divided than it already is, especially in black pro wrestling.
Yeah, and then like the way he presented it, like it was kind of out of context. Like he made it sound like Vince McMahon was calling Booker T the N word, and like it wasn't a total like joke. Like I'm not defending Vince McMahon saying the N word. I'm never doing that. That's not cool, and he shouldn't have. That shouldn't have made it to TV at any given point. But at the same time, like him bringing that up was just very like narkish. Like I don't know. Like it reminded me of when Tony Khan was doing an interview and he called WWE the Harvey Weinstein of professional wrestling, and it was like, bro, like, sometimes you're doing more harm than good after a while. I was like, yo, why are you trying? You're doing too much. You can big yourself up without trying to paint yourself as this moral high standard because you're gonna look goofy in the end.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So Book, Swerve, we need y'all to unify, man. We need y'all to come back. We don't like this division in
Patch that
black
up, man.
wrestling. Black wrestling needs you guys more than ever. But
It's facts, yo,
let's
because
talk about
we are stronger together than apart, and we don't need to be beefing over no Vince McMahon segment from 20 years ago because the man's not even in the company. So forgive Vince, forgive Vlad. We supposed to be brothers.
which goes to show you how more relevant. Vince ain't even WWE. I can't believe that's really a thing.
Wild
And
times,
he's
man.
alive. The only time I saw us not talking about Vince in WWE is like when he's in, when he passed away. Vince is alive and well, not involved in the WWE. But anyway, speaking of WWE, one thing that I think Vince definitely had a stronghold of when he was winning the WWE was the Forbidden Door, and I think WWE's Forbidden Doors kind of became more open. We saw Joe Hendry, TNA World Heavyweight Champion, wrestle at WrestleMania. So, Richie, what's your what's your thought with WWE having a Forbidden Door and that door becoming more and more open as time goes on? It's Triple H.
Well, with Vince McMahon gone, we are definitely seeing a whole new era. Like we're seeing partnerships and plays we never would have seen with that stubborn ass old man still in the front. So I'm really excited for the possibilities that we do have now. The Worlds Collide, that's going to be fun. And like you said, Joe Hendry, not even Joe Hendry, the TNA World Champion getting a moment at WrestleMania was crazy. Like there were times like in 2005 and 6. Yeah. There were times in 2005 and 6 when I was like standing AJ Styles super hard. Bro, I probably would have shitted myself if AJ Styles would have showed up at a WrestleMania. I mean, now him getting attitude adjusted would have sucked, of course. I was like 15, 16. I would have been raging. I would have been on the internet tweaking on God. But now I'm a grown man, and so I can see the moment for what it is.
Absolutely.
Are you expecting Joe Hendry to really just come out there and beat up Randy Orton? And also, I want to say, was Joe Hendry injured or something? They said he might have had a shoulder injury. I don't know if that was kayfabe or not, but he got put over. What you want me to say?
You said yeah, I mean in the handshake way, yeah, for sure. But I think with you saying that brings about one of my concerns, man, because it's like when you do these star crossovers, man, like what stars do you protect, man? Because like I can't really think of a TNA talent that has went on WWE programming and won in a strong manner, Like can you did
Zachary Wentz, he beat Wesley at a I don't know if it was a takeover, one of them NXT pay-per-views, but I was really surprised that he beat Wesley so decisively. But yeah, it does feel lopsided, but there's one party that is still benefiting from this a little bit more than the other,
Absolutely.
Well, is that true? I don't know.
But that brings in, and that just brings in my next point that you said. Like, does the good outweigh the bad for both companies? And I think, and I don't want to sit there and say this, but I'm gonna just go ahead and say this because I'm a hot take machine. I try to be a hot take machine. But is this one of TNA's ways of throwing a Hail Mary to stay relevant in the wrestling world?
Hey, yo, TNA has been throwing Hail Marys for a really long time. At this point, all TNA throws is Hail Marys. So, I mean, and TNA just did 5,000 people for Rebellion. You know what I'm saying? And mind you, the most people they've ever done is 7,000. So I think they're doing pretty good these days. So if you want to say that Forbidden Door is open, it's definitely swinging both ways. Because remember, they were sending people to Japan and Noah earlier this year. Like, WWE is doing things they haven't done before, and we're seeing a new era for the once, very cut off. We're not wrestling company.
Absolutely, sure. Like, if there was now, when I say Forbidden Door, I also think it's really just the WWE and TNA partnership. Do you think we'll ever see a New Japan guy appear in WWE?
I do. They've had a partnership in the past. Rock is already kind of alluding to it. I think that is already at play, And if it wasn't for the AEW partnership, it probably would have happened by now. And that's honestly the only wrench in it. I don't know if they have no compete clauses where in New Japan can't do deals with WWE, or WWE's probably going to be like, oh, if you work with us, you can't work with AEW, and that's probably what's not going to fly because they've done great business together.
Absolutely. Who do you think would be more opposed um to a WWE and AEW collab? Would it be the E or would it be the AEW?
Oh, definitely the E. They feel some type of way. AEW talk way too much crap.
Absolutely, for sure. Man. But as wrestling fans, man, we love it. Let's embrace it. Let's continue to push for it, man. I'm excited about that. But one thing I'm not personally excited about is just over the course of WrestleMania weekend, WWE has kind of been pulling back the curtain. We're going to get this documentary called WWE Unreal. WWE is going to bring us wrestling fans into the writers' room. I'm not a fan of this because, like, I sit there and say, like, I love being like, what's the word? Being what's the word? Work or like
Out
thinking
of
I
the
know
know.
something's going to happen and something doesn't happen. I love that feeling and just kind of being introduced to the whole writer process. I'm not. I love getting little innuendos, but I don't want to see the whole process. I don't think fans need to see the whole process because it's just going to do more and more, but hurt and make wrestling smarts think they know everything. And I don't want to say it's going to hurt the product. I just feel like it's going to hurt the fan. That's my concern. Richie, what's your thought?
I feel like this is WWE's attempt to ingratiate themselves into like that SAG, AFTRA, Emmys audience. You know what I'm saying? They want to be seen as such a TV show. You know what I'm saying? And so if we have a TV show showing you how we write our TV show, you'll have to look at us like a TV show. But the only problem is this is a wrestling show. And I don't know. Like when McDonald's showed me how the nuggets were made, I didn't want to eat the nuggets no more. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't want to see how y'all cook it up too much because a part of wrestling is the magic. And when you take away the magic, you just have real life. And wrestling is an escape for most people. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, absolutely, man. I'm not even saying I'm used to it. I can't. I'm still calling Triple H Triple H. I ain't calling that man Paul Levesque, Paul
Yeah,
Triple
I don't
H.
know, bro.
Yeah, get the hell out of here, man. Mark Calloway, The Undertaker. Like, get out my face with that, man. And you think doing a documentary is going to be well with us guys who have done man? I don't, Richie. I know you probably are a soldier, but Richie, you don't know how many times I've been on the war front when it was in school or even in my adult life of just being an advocate for wrestling. Because a lot of people will sit there and say it's fake, and man, this throws all my work in vain. Dang, it throws it all in vain.
See, I was in school during the Attitude Era, so it was, it was fun. But when the Attitude Era was over, it was over. So I spent like the rest of my, career being like a wrestling fan and hiding. But I say that, but I wore my shirts and stuff to school or whatever. But yeah, it wasn't nearly as widely accepted as it is today to be a wrestling fan.
Oh, absolutely, sure. And I think with wrestling kind of being labeled as cool now and stuff because a lot of people that I work with and stuff You'd be surprised how many times they actually engage with me in wrestling conversations. Hey Ray, I know you like wrestling, and be really trying to like have like a real deep conversation with me. And I became so used to dang near putting up a guard saying, "You don't watch wrestling, like get off me," like we're talking, and I have to really realize, oh, you're serious. Oh, so
Yeah, I've seen so many people that I went to school with talking about wrestling at a high capacity now, and I just have to look around like, now where the heck was y'all at when I was in school doing this? You know what I'm saying? Like, because like I said, I said I was a wrestling fan, but I still wore my fandom on my sleeve. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you went to my school with me, you knew I watched wrestling. You knew that's what I did. Like, I was the only person at my high school watching TNA and telling people what a Canadian Destroyer was. You know what I'm saying? I was watching Ring of Honor on my way to school trips and stuff, bro. Like I was out there, and it's cool to see it be accepted and everybody kind of coming back around and people saying, I've been watching wrestling forever, and it's just like, yeah, well, come on back home, baby, we got you,
Shout outs to us out here and all the other wrestlers that they nuts
in the trenches
on that sleeve. But one hard thing about us being wrestling fans is it comes with a price. And this past year WrestleMania was in Las Vegas. Rich, I know you have a personal feeling about WrestleMania being in Las Vegas, and there was this video going viral of, I guess, wrestling fans telling Randy Orton how much they paid for for some WrestleMania tickets, and of course he was even embarrassed. What's your thoughts on WWE having these expensive tickets and stuff like that in Vegas?
They're making it unaffordable, man. Like I've been to 4 WrestleManias. I've been to Vegas 4 times, 3 or 4 times. And so I've always said, like, yo, if they ever have WrestleMania in Vegas, ain't no way I'm missing that. Dog, I saw those prices and I totally missed it. There was no way I was going. Like, I'm not finna go in hella debt to go see that. Like, it's not even worth it at this point. You know what I'm saying? And they're turning it into like the Super Bowl where the average fan can no longer afford to be a fan, and they're going to price themselves out of the market, and it's so tacky when they're like, this is the biggest gate ever, we've made the most money ever. Like, yeah, because you're charging $500 to sit in the nosebleeds, bro. Like this isn't what is going to get my family out the house, but I am tempted to go to New Orleans next year.
Now, is that I wonder because I wonder if that was just because Vegas is just a tourist town, and so I wonder if that kind of became a thing in which, like, maybe this was that one loophole. Because like I said, if my ticket at next year's Mania, because I do plan on going to New Orleans. South Texas is real close to New Orleans, by the way. I'm not about to spend a fortune for that for some Mania tickets, and I just want to hope and I just pray that this was just a one time thing. Because I even heard Mania in LA was kind of expensive. When you think about it, was it when it was in 2023? Yeah, 2023. I heard that those Mania tickets were expensive.
Yeah.
And for it to be a 2 night event, which makes it even more crazier for these tickets to be even more expensive.
Yeah, like who can afford to pay that twice, and like just general inflation itself is a bitch right now. You know what I'm saying? Like people in Vegas are complaining about the prices in Vegas without WWE being there. You know what I'm saying? And WWE's ticket prices have been raising steadily over the last year anyway. So WrestleMania has been unaffordable probably for the last 2 or 3 years already. And so putting them in a place where the prices are constantly going up, that's a recipe for disaster. You got places like MGM Grand, they're laying off a bunch of staff because it's not busy anymore because people can't afford to go, and so when you combine that with WrestleMania, you got a recipe for disaster for a lot of fans.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's true. I think what makes this story so funny is like the person who put traction on it, which was Randy Orton, an employee. Like Richie, like as us as employers, like, could you imagine talking down about your job, about your company that you work with on the internet and it goes viral, Orton don't give a F, man.
Yeah,
No,
I
no,
mean,
no,
but
no.
they gotta know,
They gotta
when
know,
when you've been with WWE
when
for
you've been with
20
WWE
years,
for
you've
20 years,
seen the
you've
ticket
seen
prices.
the
You know what
ticket
I'm saying?
prices. You know
And
what
like
I'm
I said, I've
saying?
been to
And like I said,
4
I've been to
WrestleManias.
4 WrestleManias.
I have more money
I have
now
more
than
money
I've ever
now than
had in
I've
my
ever
life.
had
So
in my
every time
life.
that
So
I've
every time
gone
that
to
I've gone
WrestleMania,
to
I was
WrestleMania, I
poorer
was
than what I
poorer
am
than what I
today.
am today.
And I can't afford to
And
go
I
to
can't afford to go
WrestleMania
to
today.
WrestleMania today.
Absolutely, man. Like it don't make any sense, man. Sure. And like I always one thing about WWE is, which is obviously it's a corporate giant. You have to understand your fans. And do you think WWE understands their fans? Because I mean, like, if we just being real here, man. I'm proud to be a WWE fan, but then there are some times where I'm just like, we don't be making money like that, man. Do they think we're just famous millionaires? Like, I don't get it, you know?
So I think
So
it's kind
I
of a
think it's kind
thing
of a
where it's like,
thing where
they
it's
got
like, they
it's
got
not the same
it's not the same
WWE. This is
WWE. This is
TKO.
TKO.
UFC did the
UFC
same
did the
thing where
same
they kind
thing
of
where
like
they kind
priced
of like priced
themselves out,
themselves
where
out,
they
where
I
they
remember people
I
complaining
remember people
about big
complaining about
UFC
big
fights years
UFC
ago,
fights
saying
years
like
ago,
how
saying like how
expensive the tickets were.
expensive
So
the
I just kind
tickets
of
were.
feel
So I
like
just
this
kind
is
of feel like this is
an
an
endeavor thing.
endeavor
Like they
thing.
raise the
Like they
prices when they
raise the
see the
prices when
ticket
they
is
see the
hot,
ticket is hot,
and if
and
the
if
the value
the
goes down,
value
the
goes
company
down, the
suffers.
company
I
suffers.
don't
I
see
don't
it,
see
it's gonna the
it's
bubble's
gonna
gonna
the
burst
bubble's gonna
eventually,
burst
and when it
eventually. And
does,
when
we're
it
just
does, we're just
it's the ebbs and
it's the
flows of
ebbs and
business.
flows of business.
So, we look forward to seeing you guys out there in New Orleans. Hopefully, Richie, I plan on being
Yeah,
there. You plan on being in New Orleans, right, man?
yeah. Hey, listen, if I
Yeah,
could
hey,
put that
listen,
thing
if
on
I could put
Klarna,
that thing
I'm
on
in
Klarna,
that
I'm
bit.
in that
Me and
bit.
my
Me
family,
and
we
my family,
outside.
we outside.
We out there, man. And who knows? Y'all could probably see a cultural influence remote show there. So be on the lookout for that. But that does it for Hot Tag. Let's go ahead and get ready for the outro. Now, on this edition of Cultural Influence Shorts, we're going to talk about, with WrestleMania season being in our rear view, we got to talk about Black WrestleMania. And here are just a few things that, like, what are some Black WrestleMania moments that stuck out to you? I'm gonna just go over mine real quick. This Black WrestleMania moment is very notable with me because as a guy that was, as a guy that's not that's under the age of 40 and stuff like that. I feel like every wrestling fan should go ahead and watch a WrestleMania the year that they were born. And it's more synonymous in my case because WrestleMania always falls on my birthday weekend. This year was very different. WWE, we'll talk about that later. But this year at WrestleMania 2000 it features Ice T performing "Pimpin' Ain't Easy" with an entrance for The Godfather. Now I don't know what screams Black culture than watching that entrance right there. A lot of people who know about The Godfather knew what came with it. But you got Ice T, one of the top Black artists in the early '90s, one of the founding fathers in modern day in hip hop and stuff like that, to walk him out
Gangster
to
rap for
Pimpin'
sure.
Ain't Easy. It doesn't get any better than that, Richie. What you think of that moment?
I think that was a
I think
really
that was
good
a
one.
really good one.
I wouldn't
I wouldn't
was
like
thinking about
was thinking
matches and
about
stuff, but
matches and
no,
stuff,
that's
but
a
no,
solid
that's a
moment
solid
for
moment
sure. And
for
black as
sure. And
hell.
black as hell.
Yeah, that's a moment. Yeah, that's one of mine. And we're just gonna stick with the idea of entrances, okay, guys. And I'm gonna just stick with Floyd Money Mayweather's WrestleMania 24 entrance. I feel like as a black person, I feel like we always kind of had our dream of having a WrestleMania entrance to that be that elaborate. And Richie, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't 50 Cent was it? It was 50 Cent that rapped that theme song, right? It was "I Get Money," wasn't it?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
he
no,
came out to "I
he
Get
came out to
Money"
"I Get
the first
Money"
couple
the first
times, and
couple
I want to
times,
say,
and
like, I
I want
remember it
to
was on
say, like, I remember
TV
it
the
was on
first couple times.
TV
If
the
you
first couple
watch the
times. If you
playbacks
watch
now,
the
it's probably
playbacks now, it's probably
voiceover or whatever. But I
voiceover or
remember
whatever. But I
like
remember
live on that
like
Raw,
live on
it
that
was "I
Raw,
Get
it was
Money," and
"I
I was
Get
like,
Money," and I was
oh,
like,
that was like my
oh,
song
that
at
was
the
like my
time. I was
song at the
popping
time.
so
I was
hard.
popping so hard.
But yeah, they like
But
changes
yeah,
to
they
like
like
one of
changes to
his
like
rap
one of
songs and
his
stuff a
rap
little
songs and
later.
stuff a little later.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that, like I said, I think that sticks with the black culture for sure, man. I think everybody has that dream of doing that iconic point out with the pyro going around the citrus bowl and stuff like that. So that's one for sure. My other
Yeah,
next WrestleMania moment per se is I got to shout out my boy Shelton Benjamin. This is at WrestleMania 21 where that running clothesline, running up the ladder, that display of athleticism. You don't believe how many video packages that moment alone is being showcased. So I think that's one moment that will stick within people. With it will stick with people forever. That what I'm saying. And kudos to Chris Jericho for constructing that match and making that moment for Shelton, being a part of the moment for Shelton Benjamin, because it helped Shelton more than it did for Chris Jericho. Will you agree or disagree?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that was. I think that was us getting the slow. That was for you. I know for you, that was probably did that kind of give you an idea of what type of athletic beast Shelton Benjamin was?
So yeah, Shelton Benjamin was already like that dude. He was on the rise by that point. And I remember like I had became a fan of Shelton Benjamin just watching his matches on Sunday Night Heat at that point. And so like after and then he went on and joined the world's greatest tag team. And then after they split up, he had the feud with Triple H and stuff. So by this point at that WrestleMania, Shelton was already kind of like, just a premier performer. And I think that made him into like, one of the most memorable spot guys WWE ever had. And yeah, that was one of my moments for sure that I had on my list was with Shelton Benjamin at WrestleMania 21 because black athleticism, man.
Absolutely. Well, Richie, go ahead and tell me some of your black WrestleMania moments.
Okay. So mine, I'm gonna start off. I'm paying love to the ladies, right? So starting first off with the ladies, I gotta go to a triple threat match from WrestleMania 18. Now, a lot of people talk about the travesty that happened with Booker T and Triple H, but we also had another really great black moment that night. Jazz was the first black woman to walk in and successfully defend her women's championship. Give it up. She did that. She beat Lita and Trish Stratus in Trish Stratus's hometown, man.
Are you for real?
Dead ass.
And this was WrestleMania 18. So was this that same Mania that featured Rock and Hogan?
Yeah.
I love it. I didn't know. Wow.
Yep. So shout outs to her. You know what I'm saying? And so I want to bring up another WrestleMania match that not too many people talk about.
Okay.
Damn it, I lost my note on which WrestleMania it was. WrestleMania 37. There you go. WrestleMania 37. You got Big E versus Apollo Crews in the first ever black Intercontinental title match. Yeah. A lot of people don't talk about that. It's a black moment. And at that same WrestleMania, we had the first ever two black women fighting for the title. Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks. Like, come on, man. Yeah, don't get too much black out of that on that one WrestleMania.
Come on. Absolutely. Okay. Ooh, yeah. Was that the Nigerian street fight match though, with Big E and Apollo?
I think so.
Yeah, that was when they had repackaged Apollo and stuff like that. And kudos to them.
Yeah.
That was when they had repackaged. Did Big E, did he have that Wale theme yet?
I don't remember. He might have.
Okay. Well, then let's end it with this big question, because I know we hadn't got to it, but I think it's universally accepted that Kofi Mania is by far the biggest black WrestleMania moment ever. Like so that I feel like let's just go ahead and address that. Now, with that being said, do you think Kofi Mania, and once again, and let me just give you guys a full discretion. I do want to say this now. We're not saying any moment, we're not downplaying any of these moments at all. But which match you think had a bigger impact? Kofi Mania or Bianca and Sasha? In black.
Definitely Kofi. And not just to downplay the women, because what they did was incredible and it deserves to be praised too. But the emotional investment we had in the Kofi Kingston was, almost 15 years worth of build up. You know what I'm saying? To get to that moment. And for as great as Sasha and Bianca's match was, and it was great. It was, the build up and everything up to it was great. Just a long time Kofi Kingston fan, watching him get that moment, a part of the New Day, a tag team that, is in my top 3. You know what I'm saying? I don't think there's going to be a WrestleMania moment for a while that tops that. I can't think of. It's going to have to involve another black wrestler.
Absolutely. And one thing with you saying that, I felt like both of those matches set the precedent for what we see today on our product. I mean, with WrestleMania, because idea of of the night one mania with those two, because I think no night one mania. Well, that was actually the first night one that they had did, because I know 2020 was a pandemic year and stuff like that. But we got to see that was like the first night one mania with the live audience and stuff like that I thought was pretty cool and stuff like that. And it set the precedent for the star of Bianca Belair, because that was more of likely Bianca Belair's coming out party, right? That you would you agree on that?
Yeah, for sure. After that, she had arrived. She that created the star we see today. Great moment. And the one thing that you gotta love about Bianca is just she's unapologetically black. Sasha Banks is also a proud black woman as well, but I didn't see a lot of Sasha's growing up. I saw Bianca's. You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely. And just the president that it set on with Kofi Mania, I felt like with you sitting there saying that Kofi has been in WWE at that time for like 15 years and not even touching gold and stuff like that. I feel like we don't see that with Jey Uso today, man. Because like when you mentioned that, I didn't even think about like, yo, dude, Jey Uso it almost became like, if you don't get it within the first 10 years, you might not ever touch it. And there are some outliers.
yeah,
Like, I could say Mark Henry, which is cool, absolutely. But like you don't really just hear of guys being mainstays in companies and finally getting that big one until like like within the first 10 years. And I think like Kofi doing that also helped lay the foundation for a Jey Uso. And of course, hell, after Kofi, Bobby went on ahead and got it. And who else went on ahead and touched some WWE gold? Big E. Like it both of those WrestleMania moments set the foundation and helped build what WWE is now in Black WrestleMania. I mean, for WrestleMania, for Black superstars. You agree?
Yeah. Like when I was mentioning earlier in the show about, Jey Uso winning the title was my favorite part of the night, of both nights. And that's because of the emotional investment. You know what I'm saying? I was a fan of the haka, the they would do before. I liked the Uso sense, and I really enjoyed him stepping into the right hand man role. And then I really enjoyed him, turning on them, like everything that we've seen Jey Uso grow through and evolve into this today. It was a really fun story to watch. So it's that emotional investment that I was talking about that I had with Kofi Kingston. And Jey Uso ain't even black. You know what I'm saying? So it's just it's that feeling like we won it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Sure. Well, guys, that does it for the episode of Cultural Influence, man. We're trying. But for those that tuned in, like I said, thanks for tuning in briefly and stuff. We're going to get this live format down and stuff. Shout outs to Riverside FM, partner with Cultural Influence. We're going to figure some stuff out, figure out some things, but make sure you stay tuned on our YouTube channel. You're going to see various clips of this episode, and it will be on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. So, yeah, but Richie, any outro, any info you want to let them know before we get out of here?
Yeah. Thank y'all for rocking with us. You know what I'm saying? Still being subscribed after this time. I know we was gone for a minute, but now we back. And I think we're gonna be here to stay this time around, and we're gonna get this mic situation and streaming everything figured out. So just be patient, please.
Absolutely. But until next time, we out.